Cheer athlete. Today we're going to talk about a question I see all the time on different groups on Facebook. And that question is, what stretches can I do to help make my cheer skills get better? So if you follow me on social media, on Instagram or on Facebook, or if you're in our healthy cheerleading group, you'll know that I frequently talk about the need to stop stretching. Stretching is not how you're going to improve your cheer skills. Stretching is not going to build your performance and help to make you a better athlete and have more flexibility. I'm not saying don't ever stretch, because like you, I also feel the need to do some stretching. I think at the end of the day, sometimes it's good to just take yourself through range of motion and sit in a prolonged position. There's many benefits to yoga and holding positions and to increase flexibility. But flexibility is not the only thing that helps to prevent an injury. Flexibility is your ability to move your body through its range of motion. So can you take one joint through its full available range of motion? And having good flexibility has been shown to be better. If you have good range of motion in your ankles or your knees or your hips and your back, you're able to perform and move better if you have that control. So that's the key. Stretching does not improve the control. Stretching may help you improve passive range of motion. If you come in to see me in the clinic and I just stretch your legs, that's not going to help you gain that range of motion to raise your leg overhead. You need to have the active control to be able to lift that through its available range of motion, and ideally through excess range of motion. So I will tell people, don't stretch. When you're warming up, maybe when you get there first, if you like to foam roll and you like to stretch, do that first. Do that like before practice starts, before you get into your warm-up. That's not part of your warm-up. The reason being, there has been some research that shows that stretching within 30 seconds can actually decrease performance. So if you're looking to improve your jumps and you want to have a better, higher toe touch, and you want to be more flexible in your toe touch with your legs being able to go through their full range of motion, if you actually do a static stretch, which is where you're holding a stretch for 30 seconds to 60 seconds, you actually will decrease the performance in your muscles and the strength. And that can, one, set you up for risk of injury because you're not going to have the control that you need to land a jump. And two, it won't have carryover, and it's not going to, you're going to limit your range of motion. So let's talk about some aspects of mobility that will help to increase your ability to do the stunts and the tricks that you want to be able to do. And if you're watching me on YouTube or on a clip, a video, I'm recording this on my Facebook portal, and it's got a camera that keeps switching in and out. And that's one of my cheer teams that I coached back in, I think that's 2003, maybe 2002. And so it keeps zooming. So I apologize for the zoom. If you're listening on the podcast, thanks for joining us, and you can go check out the video on YouTube also. If you don't know me, I'm Laura Turner. I'm the cheer PT. I'm a physical therapist. I'm a strength coach, and I used to coach cheerleading, and I cheerleaded all through college. And so I'm very passionate about helping cheerleaders prevent injury and to stay cheerleading for life like I have. So I think it's really important on this stretching. What I learned late in my career, actually, is that when our muscles, when we looking at just flexibility, if we take our muscles through their range of motion, that doesn't lead to automatic control. Sometimes a way that I will look at flexibility or range of motion for the spine and the hamstrings is having somebody touch their toes. Now, a lot of cheerleaders can go hands to floor, no problem, easy, get their hands to the floor. But if you have them lie down and raise one leg straight up, they can't even get to 70 degrees. So how do they get that motion? It's coming from their back, number one, and they don't have the control in their legs. And it's not that they need to increase the flexibility and the range of motion, but it's more that they need to work on the stability and the control. There's a law in physiology called the law of reciprocal inhibition. And this law states that when one muscle contracts, the opposite muscle will relax. If you have excess, if you're So if you're pulling a heel stretch and you've been stretching your hamstrings, you may be stretching those hamstrings. You're actually getting the hip flexors and the external rotators and the knee extensors to relax. So they're not going to actually be able to help lift your leg up into the stretch, which we need it to do. In this case, you might be better off stretching your hip flexors to the point of excess so that that contracts as you go to lift that up, almost like kicking your leg back before you do a kick. We can work on that passive range to take you from your leg down to the leg up into that heel stretch position. But because we're overstretching that, you may, when we do the excess stretch and we go beyond, we actually stimulate what's called the stretch reflex, which then makes that muscle that you're stretching contract to help hold and protect the joint. So if you're stretching your hamstrings right before your jumps and your heel stretches, your hamstrings may actually tighten up in response to that extra stretch and make things more stiff, so that you're actually losing range of motion as you're going. We want we need the ability to be to take that motion through the full range. So instead of just doing a static stretch, what can you do? You want to take your body through its available range of motion. Now, that varies per joint and it varies per person. You may have an inherent stiffness in your ankles or your knees or your hips, and depending on the shape of your pelvis and how your ability to move through that range of motion. So it varies per person, and some things you just can't change. I see it with ballet dancers all the time. They work on the turnout and they just crank on the turnout, and they don't actually have the joint capacity to take their body through that range of motion, and they end up tearing their labrum in their hip or having hip flexor strain, and it compensates. They end up with back pain, and it precipitates a whole problem. So knowing what your available range of motion is super important to be able to get the motion in to improve that motion. Maybe you don't work on extra turnout in that instance, but maybe you work on core stability so that you can have the strength to pull your body through those ranges of motion and make it look acceptable for what your body is able to do. Knowing what your resting point is going to help you get to your progressive point, and the part, so whenever you post something on Facebook, you say, how can I get better at doing this? Well, I can't help you unless I know what you're starting at. Helping, and giving people exercises. For me, when you come in to see me in the clinic, I'm going to look at how do you move, what can you do, what does your strength look like, and your control, your motor control. Can you actually take that body through the range of motion that it needs to do? And if not, then we work on some exercises to help improve that, gradually working over time to go from a short position to a long position, back to a short position, depending on the joint that we're working on. So it's actually more important to do more strength training and working your body in those full ranges of motion. So if you're working on a pistol, if you want to work on single leg stunts, working pistol squats, working a full range of motion, maybe not loaded first. You've got to be able to control that and work that and get your joints and muscles used to working in that bigger range of motion. But if you're working on that full squat with a TRX maybe, and you're able to get down real low and then come back up, you're gonna train your joints and your muscles to have better range of motion, which is flexibility, and motor control and stability. And that will carry over into better performance in your jumps and tumbling, etc. We also need to work on things like plyometrics and dynamic or explosive exercises. These explosive exercises will shorten and lengthen and create that power that we need for things like landing out of a jump or landing and getting the power to do a back handspring or power to do a back tuck. Having that explosive and that quick lengthen before shortening motion will train your body to perform those skills easier, and you'll then have the power and the strength to do that. Things like box jumps or decline jumps, or even just a squat jump where you're squatting and jumping as high as you can up to the ceiling. All of this will help improve your overall ability and flexibility and strength. The time to do some passive stretching is really at the end of a workout or the end of a day. Yes, if you're at the end of the day and you really haven't done anything, you sat on the couch all day, don't get in there and crank to your highest level because everything's stiff and you haven't moved. So do a little bit of moving around first. Maybe just roll on the floor, crawl, any of that. But if you've done a workout at the end of practice, that's when you want to sit and hold into those end range positions. I still don't like cranking on splits or really pushing down into a straddle position because it's not functional, and we have a tendency to overpush, and then that creates that stretch reflex again and tightens muscles back up. Now, if you have tightness on both sides, and like the person I talked about before, you can touch your toes, but you can't raise your legs straight up. Likely, this is due to if in this instance, the hamstrings tightening down like guide wires on your pelvis to not allow your body to move in that motion, in which case those hamstrings stiffen up, tighten up, and they don't let you raise your leg all the way up. This is not a flexibility issue. This is a core stability issue. That your hamstrings are locking down and protecting your back and your core so that it doesn't do excess motion and create an injury. In this instance, you may do what looks like a hamstring stretch by pulling your leg up into a straight leg raise and holding onto it. But then you're going to actually move your opposite leg. Or you can hold both legs up in the air and lower one leg, keeping that knee straight so that you're training your legs to go through the motion while stabilizing at your core. Instead of feeling it in your hamstrings, you're going to feel it more in your core, and it will stop you from arching your back. It's going to protect your back and strengthen all over. In the instance of getting a scorpion or a scale, which side note, scales are my most favorite. I think they are the prettiest stunt out there. And I wish I had been able to do one when I was cheerleading. They are gorgeous. You need excellent hip extension in both legs because your down leg has to stabilize in that extension. You need the back leg to be able to go more into extension, and you need your upper back and your shoulder mobility to be able to get that motion. So things like the pretzel, which I've posted on YouTube, and in the Healthy Cheerleading group. If you want some more exercise tips, come join the Healthy Cheerleading group on Facebook, and we'll go through more exercise tips. You can ask me questions directly, and I will send you videos specifically to your needs as able. I can't help you fix an injury, but I can give you tips on where to go, and I can help you progress your skills and improve your motion and your mobility and your strength. So come check out those groups. But the exercise like the pretzel, which you'll find on YouTube, is a great exercise to help your upper back mobility at the same time as increasing your shoulder mobility and your hip extension to be able to get into that scorpion or scale. You can take that up into a half kneeling position and do the same thing. If you're doing this pre-workout and before you're getting ready to stunt, then you want to maybe move your body in and out of that hip extension and rock back and forth through your range of motion to go in and out of the stretch. So you're just touching on the edge of that stretch sensation and backing off and not cranking into it, because again, that's going to cause a stretch reflex to occur and cause things to stiffen up and tighten up. So there is some benefit to stretching. Yes, you will increase your joint range of motion and your muscle range of motion if you do some static stretching. But that's not going to help you carry over into improving your jumps and improving your stunts, getting a heel stretch, getting a scorpion, getting your scale, or getting a better back handspring or back tuck. For those, you need to take your body through full available range of motion, and you need to build strength with weights, and you need to build power through potentially some plyometrics or Olympic lifting. And you need to take your body through those ranges of motion pre-warm-up or in your warm-up. You need to take your body through the motions that you're going to be able to do or that you're planning to do through that practice. And use that active motion and not, instead of just a static holding stretch, to create better mobility. I hope that helps to explain some reasons why it's important not to just stretch. And again, if you want more guidance in this, come join the Healthy Cheerleading group. I do talk about this more in there, as well as there's plenty of exercises on YouTube. And if you'd like me to put together a routine for you and an exercise program for you that will help you as a flyer or a base, just send me a message at laura@movebetterllc.com, or send me a direct message on Facebook or Instagram at the Cheer PT, and I look forward to helping you with that. I hope you have a wonderful day. Get after your motion, your strength, and your stability. Flexibility will come if you do that. Flexibility is just what you need to do at rest. It's not going to carry over into up in the air or tumbling or holding a stunt either. Keep that in mind as you move forward into your warm-ups and into the season. Make it a good one. Stay safe. Don't forget, when in doubt, breathe it out. Take life one step at a time. And as my friend Drew Kelleher said, you're responsible for your own vibes. Have a great day.